What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe.
Always a pleasure to catch up with our next guest. Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints there, has the Saints covered from every single angle. Now, Ross, I got to ask you, like that song obviously says your name in it. It's Outcast, like we all love Outcast. But, I mean, from Atlanta, now the Saints tied with Atlanta for the division lead. Like, can we enjoy Outcast during this time period?
Oh, yeah. Look, I'm always going to enjoy Outcast. Ain't not going to stop me from enjoying some Andre Three Stacks and all that. I appreciate that. I have a running joke with our guy who covers the Falcons here on Locked On. To every time that we do a show together before we play, I talk about how Taysom Hill always just destroys Atlanta every time that they play. And one of the things that I mentioned was that he would beat Andre 3000 in a battle rap. Like, he just owns Atlanta that much. So it's a running joke.
I'd love to see Taysom Hill in any kind of battle rap.
Pay.
Yes.
Yeah, I would pay a lot for admission.
Hey, you know what? I'd also pay a lot just to see them use Taysom Hill on a football field like they did last weekend as well.
Hey, how about that?
I mean, it felt like they had a plan. It felt like there was a rhyme, a reason for everything they did offensively. And I know it's just a one-game sample size, but that's who this Saints team can be. They have the weapons, Ross. Like, we know that. They've got three receivers you feel really good about. They've got Alvin Kamara, and you got Williams there, and he can pass protect and get you 6-7 carries a game, and Taysom Hill doing what he's doing, like, and Derek Carr in the red zone. Like, they can be that team. It's just really the first time that we've seen it in its totality last week.
Yeah, this has been the consistent issue for New Orleans over the course of the past couple of years, is that you have a slew of guys that have a particular set of skills, if I could say that, and that, they just don't call upon those guys to do those things. I mean, Jimmy Graham has been an example of that so far this season. He's been targeted like once in the red zone. Most of the time when he's in on the red zone, they're running, and not only are they running, but they're running away from him. It's like a 70% split on that case.
Yep.
And so, they've kind of had this bad habit of, getting comfortable or whatever it is, and not necessarily putting these guys in the best position to succeed. And this time against the Indianapolis Colts, we saw that change. Saints ran 12 plays inside the 20, so from 19 or closer to the end zone on 12 of those plays, one of which was a false start. But on the 11 plays that they ran, the ball was in the hands of Taysom Hill or Alvin Kamara on 10 of them. Yeah. So basically every time that they were in the red zone, they turned to Taysom Hill and to Alvin Kamara. One of those Taysom Hill possessions was actually a play called for him to pass. It was to speed out to the right side with the levels concept, working over to the right side of the field. He tucked and ran for 12 yards from the 14 or from the 16 and got them in scoring position. But outside of that, the only play that didn't go to one of those guys was that pass up the seam from Derek Carr to Juwan Johnson, which almost worked. Like, it was also a good play call. Like, that's another guy you'd love to see targeted in the red zone quite a bit now that he's back. So I like what the Saints did in the red zone, and this is a part of them kind of culling and simplifying, me. I just put the words together. Their play calls in certain situations. I think you saw that illustrated really well in the red zone.
Yeah, it was. And look, that's what they have to do. That's what they have to do, because we all know, the struggles in the red zone there for the Saints. All right, so when you look at what they have coming up and you look at where the position is, like, it feels like to me, Ross, and I don't know if you agree with this, that you're able to hit kind of reset here. You're tied with the Falcons after 8 games. You've got a 500 record. You're right there, again, with every opportunity to win the division. You've got the Falcons still a couple of more times, but this feels so important because of who you have coming up on your schedule. We all know the narrative of the backup quarterback situation. You feel like you got to take full advantage of these next 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And starting with that Indianapolis Colts game, the 3 games before the bye week, which include the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings coming up, these were kind of a really, maybe the most important stretch of the season so far, because if you can walk away with 3 straight wins and 3 straight winnable games, you show that you can beat teams that you should beat, which is really kind of the rest of this schedule, right? They were said that, everybody has said from the very beginning that the Saints have the best or the easiest schedule in the NFL. Maybe the hardest game that you have left to play is the Detroit Lions, which was probably going to be the hardest game left to play at this point, one way or another, because of how good that team has looked. But I mean, when you've got, Tyson Bagent. You've got, no Khalil Herbert for the Chicago Bears, who's still on injured reserve. You've got, no Kirk Cousins with Minneapolis. Or Minnesota. What's going to happen with Justin Jefferson during this time too? Who's going to be the quarterback? Will it be the rookie Jaron Hall? Will it be Joshua Dobbs by that time? I think it'll probably be Joshua Dobbs by that time.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're in the position here to have two very winnable games before they go into their bye week and then come off the bye week against a familiar opponent. Things are set up really well for New Orleans. You have to capitalize here.
Yeah, I mean, even look at the rest of the schedule. Yes, you've got to play Detroit after the Falcons, but then you get the Panthers again. You get the Giants, both those games at home. You go on the road to L.A., and L.A.'s not played well. So the schedule sets up really nicely for the New Orleans Saints, but I think you just want to see them be consistent. I think you want to see them continue to do the things that they did in this Colts game because, sometimes – it's like, okay, yeah, I really enjoy what I saw with this New Orleans Saints team. And then they, kind of go the other way, right? We saw the Patriots game. It's like a 34-0. This is what this team can be. And then you come back, you lose to the Texans, you lose to the Jags there. What do you think, Ross, covering this team every single day, what do you think they have to be the most consistent at? What's one of the things you saw in this Colts game that changed in a positive manner that you feel like they can have the opportunity to make that stick?
Yeah, I'll say consistency on the offensive line because that buys you time to be consistent in the passing game and it allows you to be consistent in the run game, right? So it all kind of complements one another. So I think on the offensive side, that's the thing is if you don't have to rush Derek Carr's clock, you see what he can do in terms of getting the ball out and running a more comfortable offense and all those other things. If you're able to run to the tune of 160 plus yards, you see what it can do. If you can run in the red zone, you've seen what it can how it can benefit. I mean, even if you add in, I think the Saints were 3 of 4 in the red zone in this game against the Indianapolis Colts. You could call it 4 of 5 because the Taysom Hill touchdown run, or the first one was from the 20-yard line. So I mean, that's blocking down in the red area, and that's what turned sort of the offense around for New Orleans. They haven't had much trouble moving the ball between the 20s. It's been once they get to the 20s. And I think having the option to run in the red zone makes a big difference. So I think consistency on the offensive line is kind of the biggest thing for this team moving forward.
Yeah, I thought Ryan Ramczyk looked like Ryan Ramczyk for the first time in really a couple of games because, like, we've seen struggles, but not that guy. And he had some struggles here in this season. It's been a surprise. You've put so many resources into that offensive line, Ross, and it's not just been bad. Like, it's been almost like worse than the league poor with some of the things that you've tried different lineups. You've tried benching Trevor Penning. You've tried a couple of different things. And this offensive line has been a bad surprise, considering that you've got basically all first-round picks. I mean, McCoy's a second-round pick. You've put so much into this offensive line, and it's been one of the worst in the league.
Yeah, it's been a real surprise so far. And maybe one of the things that when we watched over the course of training camp and we went, I'm a little bit concerned about the offensive line depth. We should have been saying that we were a little bit concerned about the offensive line just kind of as a whole. But you kind of expected that with all of the, as you mentioned, all the resources that have been put into this offensive line. You have a great offensive line coach like Doug Marrone. You've got Jari Evans back there helping out. Danbury's back there helping out. Like, you've got really good, everything, by all intents and purposes. And this is what we've been saying about the New Orleans Saints offense as a whole. So it's not a surprise that we would say this about the offensive line as well, that all of the talent is there. It's just that for whatever reason, when they got out on the field, they haven't been able to execute. They certainly haven't been able to execute consistently. Now they have an opportunity to change that narrative. I think this is their 4th, maybe 5th offensive line combination with Andres Pete outside, Max Garcia in at left guard, and then Ryan Ramczyk back at right tackle. If this is what's going to work, then this is what's going to work. Like, once you find that combination, keep that combination together and continue to go through. And what that does is that it opens everything else up, right? You don't have to dedicate your tight ends to blocking. You don't have to dedicate your running backs to picking up, out of the backfield. You still can, but you're not forced to do it at such a consistency that you take those guys out of the game otherwise.
I want to ask you now about Chris Olave, somebody that we have certainly seen flash at some points this season. Those flashes came kind of early. You look at this game, and you had Shaheed and Thomas and Kamara have more receiving yards than Chris Olave. Some people getting a little worried. We saw the body language with Derek Carr on the go route where he stops running, and a lot of he said, she said, on the internet, which that tends to happen sometimes. But where are you at right now with Chris Olave, considering where he started the season and where he is right now?
Yeah, I have the utmost confidence that he'll return to being the guy with 100 yards in, most games and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, even just 2 games ago, he had 90, I think it was 96 receiving yards and 57, and then he went down into the 40s this past game. But, it's not like he has been devoid of production for, he hasn't even been devoid of production for 2 weeks, I would
Yeah.
say at this point. I think that he's a young guy that's got a lot going on with him and stuff like that. I get that. He's a human being. But I have absolutely no doubt that with Cody Burns as his wide receiver coach, with Michael Thomas there to kind of lean on, and with this team being the team that it has been so far and its ability to support each other despite whatever is going on, and we've seen that over and over again as other people from the outside talk about division. This team has kind of shown us nothing but unity over the course of the past 2 seasons. I think Chris Olave is in the best possible place for himself right now. And once he kind of clears the things that he needs to clear, then he'll be back to being the guy that we're used to seeing on the field. He was nearly there just this past week. If that one pass gets timed up right, if he doesn't lose it in the lights, whatever it is that happens there, and he catches that pass and walks into the end zone, we're having an entirely different conversation about him already. I expect that we'll be having that different conversation after the Bears game.
Last one for you, Ross, before we let you go, catching up with our guy Ross Jackson here on OTB. I want to brag on Jordan Howden, the 5th-round pick out of Minnesota.
Let's do it.
Every time I watch tape, and I'm watching the All-22, I mean, he is all over the field, and he's a 5th-round selection. That's great. He is playing way above a 5th-round selection. I think he can do multiple things. I think he helps you in multiple spots, and he has been a real bright spot. And look, Brian Brzez's been really good as a 1st-round pick, and so he has played well. But for me, the story is a 5th-round pick out of Minnesota.
Yeah, I think right now Jordan Howden has proven to be your second best rookie so far, right? Out of the rookies that have played. Now, A.T. Perry just got his first game, and he only played 8 snaps in the game. Brian Brzez's been that guy.
Yeah.
Need him to stop lining up over the center on field goals. I think he's done that like 2 or 3 times so far this year. But once he gets that out of his game, it'll be good. But, I mean, I think Jordan Howden truly has been your second best guy. And, I spoke with Marcus Robertson, the Saints defensive backs coach, a few weeks ago about Jordan Howden. And one of the things that he told me was that, we're going to be talking here in a couple of years about how good this guy is. Yeah. And that's like what he said to me. They have a lot of confidence in Jordan Howden, and you can see it on the field. There was the one play this past weekend. It was the touchdown pass on a pass that really should have never gotten out of Gardner Minshew's hands, but it was one of those like almost sack situations towards the back of the end zone to that tight end where he kind of pulled up. This is fresh off of a couple of pass interference penalties and stuff like that. So can't let the penalties of others kind of get into your head. He kind of pulled back and tried to, not draw that flag, and it ended up surrendering a touchdown because Lonnie Johnson Jr.'s diving attempt to knock it away wasn't there. But outside of that one moment, and that's just rookie stuff, once he really gets going and gets it, he could be the future right now at the safety position once Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu are done here in New Orleans.
All right, Ross Jackson. Ross, you're the best. We appreciate you hopping on with us and joining us last minute.
Thanks, guys. No problem at all. Appreciate you having me on. Take care, stay safe, and I look forward to talking to you again here soon.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the 2 guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.